Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach, and today we have with us Nanette Miner, who is the Training Doctor. Nanette, welcome to the program.
Hi, Mike. Thank you.
Hey, so give us a little bit of background on yourself, what led you to start your firm, The Training Doctor, and I want to start off, I always love when you see, those, I forget what kind of test they're called, but it's like, when you hear this word, what do you think? Well, whenever you see business names or company names, and it's like, okay, Training Doctor, boy, that brings up impressions in my mind of, okay, a doctor is not someone that is just going to come in and say, you need this, push, push, push. They're assessing and they're analyzing and they're, diagnosing. So it gives me the idea that you've got vast background and also that you're going to come into an organization to see what type of training may be the case. So tell me a little bit about your background and let's see how close I was to predicting what your focus is.
You are 100% close. Good job.
Man, I am clairvoyant. And I mean, it's just really interesting just because that does one thing. It tells you that you've got that dialed in messaging on that name. I'm sure you chose it years ago, but what is the Training Doctor?
So the Training Doctor is a leadership development firm, consultancy, but what I do is very different, I believe, than what most organizations do. So let me just back up and give a little bit of history about how I got here. So I've been in business for almost 30 years. And for the first 25 years, we did custom instructional design for our clients. So we designed courses or curriculums that were unique to that organization. And we had Fortune 100 clients and very good feedback and a lot of repeat and referral business, and it was all a wonderful machine that was humming along nicely. But one of the things that I realized as I worked with very many different organizations was that everything was skills related and everything was here and now related. It was like just-in-time training. So, if we're going to launch a new product, we're going to have to get new salespeople. We're going to have to do sales training. And everything was very short-term, short-focus. And I realized after I started going into many, many organizations over 25 years that what nobody was doing was planning for the future. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, when you started to hear all this stuff in the media about how the boomers are all going to be gone by 2030, according to the U.S. Census, because that's generally when they'll all reach, retirement age around age 65. That's when the youngest will reach age 65. I thought, holy cow, we really have not been developing younger generations to be the future leaders of organizations. And I see that as I went into these organizations over and over again where younger generations, and I'm talking, not out of college, I'm talking 45, 45 and below are the younger generations in the workplace right now. Even actually 55 and below, because Gen X is just turning 55 this year, don't think like business people. They don't. Everything is reactionary and everything is, like I said earlier, skills-based. And what I realized was I have been a part of this problem for almost 30 years where I've been designing training that was for a specific person, specific purpose, but not designing a learning process where people could become better business people. And so even though I went into lots of different companies and had lots of exposure and had a lot of good general business knowledge, I realized that the participants in the training did not. They didn't understand strategy. They didn't understand risk. They didn't understand competitive intelligence. I can't tell you how many times I've encountered a business person, quote unquote, who does not understand really how their company makes money.
Wow.
And one of the things that always struck me was when I would go into a new organization, I would say, give me the tour. I'd like to see the whole operation and understand how it works. And then at some point in the future, I'd be working with someone individually, and I'd say, something about their organization. And they would say to me, oh, I didn't know that. And I thought, how can I know more about your organization as an outsider than you working here? So in the last 3, 4, 5 years, I really started to reformulate what we offered, primarily because I felt culpable about helping this terrible process develop. And so I've retrenched in the last 3, 4, 5 years to just do leadership development, and it's really not even what most people would think leadership development, because what happens in America, also terrible, is we apply leadership development to people we've already made leaders. We say, hey, you're now a manager. So in addition to all these operational things that you now take responsibility for, we want you to learn feedback skills and coaching skills and how to do performance appraisals and, how to do competitive intelligence. And it's too much. It's overwhelming. And so my philosophy, and what I'm now really trying to promote, is a philosophy called leadership from day one. And I feel when someone joins an organization, you should have a 3-year, 5-year, 10-year plan for how you're going to turn that person into a business person. Because I really, truly believe come 2030, we are not going to have well-rounded business people in corporate America, and I think our organizations are really going to suffer because we've siloed people, and that's another mistake we've made over the years. We've siloed people. So if you enter in finance, you stay in finance. And even though we might give you professional development, we don't teach you how the marketing department works. We don't teach you how operations works. So you don't, like I said, I'd go around and understand how an organization works, and then I'd be working with people who didn't know how their organization works. So people don't even understand how their own companies work, and so that's my approach. I just think we have to start there. People have to understand how their companies work, how their industries work, and how business works in general if we expect good leaders in the future.
Well, you said so much there. We could probably jump off and do about a 4-hour half-day workshop on just that opening statement. So that's so awesome. A couple things that jump into my mind is when you say silo, it's interesting because I just got an email from one of the universities I teach for, and they were talking about how they're changing their whole approach. They're not siloing their students anymore, where if you come into the School of Business, the School of Nursing or whatever, that's where you stay. Well, they are now just going, you're a student of this university. That's it. And what that's doing is that lets the students get interaction from faculty and admin from all over the different schools. And guess what that does? And I know with you, you've got your doctorate, so you can really relate to this. Some companies do not, they won't probably come out and say it, but they would prefer that if you got your undergrad from one school and graduate from a different school, so that you're drawing from the intellect from new thought leaders and professors at this other school, rather than, the same guy that taught you business in undergrad, he's teaching the MBA, so yay, you got his same old rehashed stuff. So I love that silo concept. And then the other thing is everything you just described, I am makes me think of something else. I'm not a hockey fan, but I do know the quote from Wayne Gretzky where it's like, you skate where the puck is going, not where it's at now. And what you're doing, what you're describing there is, you're like, okay, if we keep doing this, typical training where it's like, you need this, go, just in time, train, here you go. But you're seeing where the puck or the industry, and really in this respect, demographics, you see where people are aging out. Where's that heading? And what train wreck could that cause? Well, how can I prevent that? Let's not wait till the train wrecks and then send the EMTs. Let's prevent the whole dumb train wreck to begin with. So I love that approach and love that concept. So let's jump right now into one of your solutions, which is your upcoming leadership retreat. Tell us about that and how that is now helping to deliver on your vision and mission.
Cool. Well, thank you. So we have a 2-day strategy workshop coming up in our headquarters city of Myrtle Beach. We're holding. It's a selling point. Oh, come look at the beautiful ocean while we're working very hard, because it is an intense workshop. And it's actually a spin-off of what I've been doing privately with companies for a couple of years, where I go into an organization for 2 or 3 days. We work with the senior managers. We look at who their current workforce is, what skills do the senior managers have, what demographic are they in, and then who's up and coming, and do they have those same skills? And then let's, like you had said, let's look to the future. Well, what new skills will those people need, and how are we going to get them skilled up? I didn't want to keep using that word, but how are we going to get them that knowledge and experience so that slowly they develop those skills, in time to be promoted to capable leadership? So I've done that privately for organizations for a few years, and I felt as though I'm on a mission more than trying to to be a business person. I really feel this is going to be such a crisis in the next 10 years. And like you said, once it's a crisis, we can't fix it, right?
Yeah.
It's as you said in the introduction as well, being a doctor, you go into a doctor and you say, let's look at the whole situation and what's the best way to approach this illness. So I do think in corporate America, we've got this illness where we're much too short-sighted. So our workshop is the first time I have tried to offer this in a public forum rather than go into an organization and work with their people. I've redeveloped it so that it is basically 4 modules or 4 topics, so we'll cover each one about half a day. But there's a lot of work that goes into it as well. I mean, it's not just sitting there and listening. I say to my potential clients, this is your organization. I can't do the work for you, but I can guide you through the steps that will get you to the right answers or the right conclusions, or at least know where that hockey puck is going. So, yep. So we know what we have to work for or work towards. So we're offering it as a public, quote-unquote, workshop. There will only be 6 companies. There has to be 2 people at least from each company, because I find, again, because of silos, that operations and HR typically don't work hand in hand, or it could be, the owner or a CEO of a company. But there has to be somebody who understands how the business works and somebody who understands the people of the organization, because we need a lot of people data to understand the planning process, to understand what we're going to plan. So we have 4 modules. Our first is, what are the demographics of this organization? Are we going to have people aging out? Do we have any leadership pipelines? And if not, who do we identify to put in that pipeline so we can start the training now? And then we analyze what skills will be necessary immediately and in the future, like we said, looking where that hockey puck is going. And then the third module, which is my favorite, because I've always been a very down and dirty, quick and dirty kind of person. I don't want to say quick because it's not short shrift. It's just like, let's not spend money if we don't have to.
Efficient.
Because there's so many. Yeah, okay. Because there's so many resources available out there in the world now, especially with the internet. I mean, things have changed since I started 30 years ago. And leadership development, although I don't want to disparage it in any way, is a pretty generic topic. I mean, there's a lot of things that are not going to be unique to your organization. There's leadership. There's communication skills, and there's presentation skills, and there's understanding strategy. And, the things I mentioned earlier, how do you do a competitive analysis, those kinds of things. So we don't have to create that for you. We just have to show you where those resources are so you can create a development plan for your organization. So our third session is all basically free and very low-cost resources. And I explain what they all are, and then we give people time to research them on their own. I'll give you a quick example, 2 quick examples that anybody can do. One, start a tuition reimbursement program, because it actually makes you money.
Yeah.
Because you get over a $5,000 tax credit as an employer for each person that's enrolled in the program, and then you don't actually have to provide any of the training because your participants will be going off to a college or a university. So there are some restrictions around that. I won't get into that, but to me, that's just a no-brainer, and there are so few organizations that offer tuition reimbursement. And then the other option would be just go to your local community college or university if you're near one, and mostly everybody's near one within an hour or so. But a lot of people don't realize that in addition to offering degree granting programs, every college has a business office that works with the workforce in the area, because it's important to them to develop future workers that are appropriate for their area as well. So you can often find that they will custom design something for you if you feel you have a unique need, and also do the delivery. So all you have to do is, call them up and ask, share with them what your needs are, and I'm sure you'll find a local university very economical, and then, right there in your backyard too, so you continue to use them over and over. So that's our third module, and then our fourth module is what is the thing that's always going to trip people up, is so how do we roll this out? So now we know who we've got, what skills they need, and where we potentially could get this. There's lots of online resources, like LinkedIn Learning is a wonderful resource as well. But how do we make this into a cohesive plan, not only for the organization, but then even down at the departmental level? Because a person in finance is going to need a different learning plan than somebody in customer service or somebody in marketing. There's probably 70% of it that's going to be generic across the board, but then there's probably 30% that a finance person needs to understand risk much more than a customer service person does. So then, how do we make it a developmental plan for that particular role or department as well?
As you were explaining that, it reminded me of a couple points, and so I wanted to bring them up and see if you find them valid or viable. So you said this is the first time you're doing it in group setting. You normally go into organizations. I would feel that this could be a tremendous amplification of the content where you're definitely not going to share personal data and pull out, reports and numbers and proprietary information. But when people from one organization sees how you are recommending and working with and how this blueprint is being applied, I would feel that it becomes this kind of momentum learning building off of each one, like, ooh, yeah, you guys could do it this way and this organization could, and it's the same concepts, but I would feel that it becomes very mastermind, fireside chat kind of vibrant rather than, yeah, come on in and you're in that silo. So let's take the opposite of that silo and say, boy, you are just really bringing a vibrant experience by having this as a group. Would that be a fair assessment there?
That is part of the plan as well, that there'll be more synergy by having companies, not necessarily working together, like you said, but just having common conversations and comparative conversations. And one of the ways that we're going to ensure that happens is we actually have a private chef coming into the beach house to cook us 3 meals a day. So I'm not letting them out.
Well, have you ever seen co-working spaces?
Yeah.
So I've toured several, and one of their selling points is, look, this is an environment that you're not necessarily working with people down the table or across the hall, but the fact that you're in the same realm and room, you're going to be picking up on their ideas and conversations and interactions, and it's going to stimulate that kind of stuff without even having a specified plan. So I think that is a really cool thing. Also, here's something else. Great. You're talking about that hockey puck and looking where the trends are going, way back in the day. I remember the book Mega Trends. Well, do you remember that one? I think it was Tom Peters. But anyway, I think that's where you're talking about here with where the trends already going. It's not some weird prediction. This is the numbers and the stats of here's where we are headed now. We're in the middle of this. Yeah. Because of this, here's what you need to be doing. So here's just a thought. I'm certain that the highest ranking CEO and their highest ranking VP are not always going to be the ones that come to this retreat. Maybe there are going to be those people at this retreat, but I would suspect that it's going to be some of the leadership and the senior leaders, and there's going to be 1 or 2 levels above the people that come to your retreat. What is going to happen when they go back and they go, hey, in our next meeting, next executive board meeting, hey, listen, we just got back from that. Here's some things that we are bringing out of the organization because we see this and this and this coming, and they're going to start taking some of your thought leadership and mindsets that you're teaching them, and it's going to be kind of almost bestowed upon them. They're going to be looked at like that trend-setting thought leader within their organization, and they're going to walk in with that plan and that blueprint, and that's going to help the organization, but it also should help their contribution, right? Is that something that you suspect could happen as well?
Wow. Yes and no. So one of the things that I've done very differently in the last few years is not worked with my normal client base. So I have now focused on small and medium-sized companies, because they generally don't even have training departments, much less succession plans or career path plans. And the big guys do. And you can't turn a big ship around. Yeah. But primarily because, to your point, I do want the CEO or the owner or the founder there because this is the trajectory of their company, and I want them to be involved in the trajectory of their company. I don't think somebody in that position at a smaller company would take the recommendation of a HR director, but the HR director has to be there as well, and so that's the actual another reason why there has to be at least 2 people. There has to be collusion at the company. We can't have one person come and go back and try to be the flag bearer because it's not going to work. We have to have the organization, operationally say we need this operationally because we can see how our operation will be harmed if we don't move in this direction, and then we need the HR people to say, okay, well, now we know how to hire for or
Yeah.
Put career paths in place with the people that we have or the people that we know we now need to attract. So we definitely need two branches of the organization to come. And ideally, yes, I would like the CEO or the founder there because they have the most skin in the game.
Vested interest. Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, that's a really good point.
I heard a great quote from the former CEO of Pepsi the other day. What is her name? Indra Nui. And she said, when you run a company, it's not about your legacy as a CEO. It's about the next CEO's legacy. You need to run it for the next person, which I thought was astounding.
Yeah, because guess what? If you have that mindset, you're thinking big picture, you're thinking broad, you're thinking larger projects, and oh, by the way, the next quarter in front of you, that's going to take care of itself successfully because you're thinking that far ahead. Whereas if you're thinking about this quarter only and you're so focused, you might trip. Like if you're walking down and you're looking just at the next step in front of you, you might miss the fact that you're walking right into a telephone pole or something. So yeah, that's a really, really good point. Yeah, good job.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, so here's a question. Let's wrap up with this. Let's think about an example of what someone that would come out of this event, what's an example of one thing that they could be thinking about that they could learn, solve, and implement coming out of this. Now, I would suspect that they're going to have a checklist a mile long of things that they're going to come out buzzing. But what's one of the things, tangible things that you can go, okay, let's get some quick wins. Here's a quick win, and it would look like something like this.
So one of the things that I suggest, because it is a quick win and it makes people feel empowered, is, and you are absolutely correct, they're going to come out with a huge checklist of, do this. It's like wedding planning. Do this in the first month. Do this in the third month. But one of the things that I think is a quick win is to send a survey out to everybody in your organization, which is easy to do using SurveyMonkey or even Google Forms. Doesn't cost you a thing. But I would say you have to divide it by department, because the question will be, and so you want the answers to come back as to give you a look inside that department, is how were you prepared for the role that you are in now, and what would you recommend somebody know or be able to do in order to fill your position, in order to basically replace you, which could make people, nervous. We're not looking to, we are looking to replace you because, as they say, you can't be a leader if you don't have somebody behind you that can move into your position, right? You're never going to get promoted if you don't have anybody to fill your position. So I think the baseline, and I've learned this through experience, is most people will say, I did not learn the skills I needed to be successful in this job at this job.
Wow.
I got them somewhere else, or I brought them with me. And so I think that's an eye-opening exercise when you realize, wow. So here's one of the things that, you said, I think, you kind of alluded to, is that one of the ancillary benefits is what I see organizations doing is beg, borrowing, and stealing from other organizations. Yeah. Oh, we need a marketing manager. Let's go out and look for a marketing manager. Well, how much does that cost you in terms of time and money? You have an open position. You have to do recruitment and hiring and filtering and making an offer. It takes weeks. There's opportunity cost. There's time for this person to be onboarded. What if they don't fit with your culture? I personally know a fellow who joined a company as their talent and culture director, and he left within a year. And that just makes me laugh so hard, because I'm like, how can the director of culture not last in an organization?
Yeah.
Right?
We're trying to nurture something here.
Exactly. Like, well, I guess he clashed. That's pretty funny. So I think a really quick win and very insightful for, even like you said, if the CEO or the owner isn't there, a very insightful piece of data to present to that person is, look, everybody that we hired came from somewhere else with this skill, or had a mentor, which is another sideline. That's one of the things that we suggest you can do, for absolutely no money. But we didn't develop this person, and therefore we are at a risk of not having anybody in place should this person leave us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I love your outlook. I think that what you said something about 10 minutes ago that I think everybody in their mind kind of nodded, going, leadership typically is so the same old, same old. It's, the same people are doing the same things, talking about the same stuff, and they just package it up differently, is my take on what you said. But it's like, wow, you're talking about something fresh and new and different. And we've all heard millennials don't work with whatever. We're people, but there are certain flags and indicators that will, if we can polish this up and spruce this up, boy, if we have that plan and we work together, we're all in it together, we all are kind of side by side, back to back, focusing on our corporate vision the right way, boy, that leadership is going to take that in the correct direction. But you've got to have that forward thinking, that next generation in reality thinking. So I love your approach, and I think this event sounds really, really wonderful. What's the best way that someone could learn more about it and maybe register to come?
Oh, that'd be great. So our website is trainingdoctor.com, and then across the top menu bar, you'll see a link that says Future Leader Workshop. And it's got all the detail. Excellent. And can I just add something else that's like subliminally, because you just reminded me of this. Subliminally, there's a quote from W. Edwards Deming where he said, and this was about operations and productivity, but I just reinsert the word leadership in it. He says, if you can increase your productivity by 10%, you can increase your profitability by 50%. Ooh. And that's because if you have people working more efficiently and more effectively, all your fixed costs are the same. So now everything that they do better and faster goes to the bottom line. And so that's kind of my philosophy with leadership as well. Like, not everybody's going to want to be a leader, and not everybody will, get promoted to it. But just because the fact that everybody has these better abilities, your organization, as you said, is going to run more smoothly. The next quarter is going to take care of itself because they have better communication skills and better collaboration skills and better problem-solving skills. Like, everybody should have those skills. Why are you holding back those kinds of skills until somebody gets promoted into a position? Which, as they say, the Peter Principle is you get promoted into the position you can't do.
Yep, and I'll give you my last your thought. Maybe think of something else. So here's have you ever heard of the concept? And I'm sure I'll butcher the actual quote or the line, but it's kind of like the concept of a rising tide raises all ships. So if
I say that all the time.
Okay, good. Well, then, if this concept here, you might find that in the C-suite and the executives of the CEO of your small to mid-sized business, you're going to start doing some of these things in focus on leadership. But don't be surprised if your HR department or your marketing department start, kind of fine-tuning what they're doing and amping up and scaling up their game because they see what your division is doing. So I think it could have that trickle down and compound effect in a lot of different ways, more than just come and learn these techniques. So I think it's just got a great potential.
Yes, and that's a phrase I use all the time. A rising tide lifts all ships.
Awesome. Hey, I got it right. Hey, Nanette, thank you so much for your time today. It was really great talking with you. I love what you're doing.
Thank you, Mike.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.